I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind the board members to please speak distinctly and clearly into the mic as we are recording today's meeting for later streaming. First up today, I'd like to enact the Baker rule and ask for an approval of the minutes for the Board of Directors meeting on May the 6th. You should all have received copies in your board packet. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well done. Good job. Next, are there any members of the public who would like to address the board at this time? Thank you. Now on to presentations. I'm now going to ask Kristen DeMarco to come up and present today's Milestone Award to Jeff Preiss. Kristen.
Good morning, everyone. It's with great pleasure that I stand here. Would like to recognize Mr. Jeff Preiss, who is our marketing manager. Jeff began work 20 years ago, rewind to 1999, as JAXPORT's communication coordinator, helping to put together our quarterly magazine, printed directory, and as well as coordinating internal communications. He has moved into our marketing department, where he's been instrumental in helping the sales team to craft presentations, and for many years, he coordinated our participation in industry trade shows and annual customer appreciation at TPC. More recently, Jeff led our rebranding effort, which created our new logo and our new promotional video. And Jeff did nearly all the work himself to create the brand new JAXPORT website. Now Jeff is leading our social media and digital marketing campaigns to help our sales team reach customers all over the world. Jeff has been a loyal and valuable employee, working hard to create some of the great work from our marketing department. In concert with his 20-year celebration, last week would also like to share that Jeff was named by Propeller Club Port of Jacksonville Maritime Person of the Year.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Jeff also celebrated his birthday last week. Jeff, you're really a picture of enthusiasm, exceptional work ethics, and you're always making us laugh. So thank you for all your commitment. And we'd like to say happy birthday, congratulations, and happy anniversary to you.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff, I've had the great pleasure of working with you for a number of years now, ever since I've been here, and you're a great asset to this organization. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Now on to new business. I'll ask Fred Wong to come up and present BD 2019-06-1. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the board. I am presenting today BD 2019-06-01 as described, authorization and approval for the sale of property located at 1583 Jesse Street to Dueños Trailers, Florida, Incorporated. Just a little background. Since 1993, JAXPORT has owned 22.62 acres of property historically used for dredge material disposal and overflow for port storage. The potential buyer is currently leasing the property for overflow storage at this time and has submitted a purchase and sale agreement to acquire simple free interest for the property. After a full evaluation of the property's current and future benefit to JAXPORT, it was concluded that the property has minimal utility and can be deemed surplus and sold to the buyer for $2.26 million. Additionally, the buyer will continue to utilize JAXPORT to move cargo in and out of TMT through Crowley. Management respectfully recommends the Board of Directors to authorize our CEO, Mr. Eric Green, to execute the agreement for the sale and purchase price of $2.26 million, and all documents necessary to transfer the property as shown on Exhibit A to Dueños Trailers, Florida, Inc.
Great. Fred, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, sir.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Can I ask Fred a question?
Please, yeah.
Fred, on the Exhibit A, there is a piece of property north, I guess it's north, called the COJ property.
Yes.
Is that ours or is that actually the city's?
That's the city. It was built as a water treatment pond.
And so it's a pond?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Currently, right now, yes, sir.
Fred, thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Williams will now come up to present BD 2019-06-2 and BD 2019-06-03. Linda, good morning.
Good morning. Through the board chair to members of the board, good morning. This morning I will be presenting BD 2019-06-02, the 12th Amendment to the Imports Agreement. As background, Imports is one of the largest auto processors in North America and has been a tenant of JAXPORT's for approximately 40 years. Imports' current lease has been in force since 2000 and has been previously amended 11 times. To aid JAXPORT's commitment to a high-density container terminal, Imports will be amending this contract. The status, management, and JAXPORT has successfully negotiated the terms of this 12th Amendment that has been circulated to the board. The terms have also been reviewed and approved by JAXPORT's Pricing Committee and the Office of General Counsel. The terms in summary basically is, and this amendment does a number of things. It extends the 141.7 acres by 25 years to 2044 and also adds 2 5-year mutual renewable options. It also terminates and releases them for 20.3 acres, and it allows a 1.4 acre to be subleased between Imports and SSA. And on a 7-acre parcel of land, it extends that parcel for 5 years with a 1-year notification to vacate in the event that SSA wants to expand. In addition, based on the commitment that JAXPORT has made to this board in terms of minimum annual guarantees, Imports has agreed that in the event that we negotiate a minimum annual guarantee and a performance standard with other processors on Blount Island Terminal, they will also incorporate that into this document. So I would like to ask you, the members of the board, to approve this 12th Amendment and allow our Chief Executive Officer to execute the document.
Linda, thank you. First of all, do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Great. I'll call for a vote on BD 2019-06-02. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So passes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now present BD 2019-06-03. This is also an agreement with Imports for the property located at our Dames Point facility. In late 2018, JAXPORT completed construction of a new parking area servicing its cruise terminal at Dames Point. Doing so, it created 22.4 acres of available property that Imports is currently using on an overflow basis. What Imports would like to do is now incorporate this into a document that will be for 25 years with 2 5-year options. One of the things that they will also be doing with this agreement is there's a approximately 45-acre parcel of undeveloped property that they will be developing. They will have 4 years to do so at a cost of not to exceed $10 million that we will be rebating back through a lease amendment. They have also agreed to a minimum annual guarantee of $35,000 per acre with a performance standard of 1,400 vehicles per acre. This has gone through JAXPORT's Pricing Committee and has been approved by the Pricing Committee and the Office of General Counsel. One of the things I'd like to do is ask the board to approve this agreement and allow its chief executive officer to execute the document.
Great, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
No later than 4 years from execution, what mechanism do we have in the process of that 4 years to make sure something's going on?
We're actually giving them 4 years, and one of the things they have to do is put milestones in place that will be incorporated in the event that they do not execute this document and move into that property. We do have the option to terminate the agreement.
Thank you.
I have a question as well. So are these two separate agreements?
These are two separate agreements. In terms of the 22.4 and the 45, no, it's one agreement.
No, I meant the
The previous
first-
one? Yes,
Right.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Anything else? Good. Oh, please, Mr. Green.
Through the chair to Dr. Newman, part of the answer to your question, one of the milestones would be permitting. Typically, JAXPORT itself, we secure the permits. We're asking imports to secure their permits, so we're making that part of the milestones. That's probably going to be about an 18-month process due to some of the wetlands that we have to mitigate for, but they can also do it a lot quicker than we can. So that would definitely be one of the milestones as we start this process.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda.
Anything else? All right, we'll call the question to vote on BD 2019-06-3 as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Thank you, Linda. Beth McCaig will now come up and present the next 3 submissions. Beth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. First, I would like to present, this is submission 0604. This morning, we presented the 2019-2020 operating budget and capital budget to the Audit Committee. It was reviewed and approved with the recommendation relating to the treatment of revenue recognition of certain payments from SSA. As a result of that request and recommendation, Mike McClung and I will be meeting with our external auditors and also city auditors to ensure that the payments are reflected accurately and with total transparency. Overall, I am going to comment just on a few things regarding the key elements. Container revenue is expected to increase by 5.62%. We have good performance reported and projected from both our Asian and Puerto Rican trade lane carriers. Autos will have a strong year, although not quite as robust as 2018-19. We're budgeting a slight decline of 3.33%. Our bulk categories are all expected to increase over this year, with emphasis in break bulk. Our sales team continues to report that JAXPORT is becoming more important to the wood pulp transportation groups, and break bulk is expected to increase by 6.89% due to that wood pulp. Cruise revenues are off over 10%. This is because Carnival's ship that has recently been docked here, the Ecstasy, will be placed in dry dock and will miss 3 sailings. That represents revenue loss to us. However, the line of business continues to remain very important to the diversification of our total revenue base, and the sailings that do go out are expected to go out over 100% capacity. Overall, operating revenue will increase by 1.42%. Operating expenses are budgeted to increase just over 4%. This is the result of just over 3% increases in salaries having to do with increases for both budgeted for both union and non-union employees, and also increases in benefits, mostly health benefits and security services. Debt service declines as the state infrastructure bond is being extinguished, and net income after debt service and contribution to tenants is budgeted to be $9.124 million. This will all go to our capital outlay. The other part of the budget is the capital plan. In 2020, the plan calls for a total outlay of $125,731,000. The most significant projects will be harbor deepening, completion of build-out of berths 33, 34, and the build-out of the international terminal on Blunt Island. Most of the money for this build-out for all of these things will be paid for by grants from Florida Department of Transportation and the U.S. government. With board approval, we will present this budget to the Mayor's Budget Review Committee on June 24th and forward it to City Council as required, along with the board resolution authorizing us to do so. So, Mr. Chairman, the operating budget has been submitted along with the resolution, and we ask the board for approval. I note that the budget is submitted along with the recommendation from the Audit Committee regarding determining the best way to treat the payments coming from SSA.
Prior to entertaining a motion, I'd ask John Baker, who's chairman of the Audit Committee, if he would like to add anything to Ms. McCaig's report.
First of all, thank you, Beth. Our committee went through the budget in great detail this morning and voted to pass it in the manner in which she said. And so it's our recommendation to this full board that it be passed.
Great. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Great. Questions, conversation? Anybody? Great. Call the question on BD 2019-06-04. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Thank you. Ms. McCaig?
Thank you. The next submission is 0605, and this has to do with our insurance policies. This submission is a request for the board to reaffirm JAXPORT's participation in the City of Jacksonville Insurance Program. The program provides our property and casualty coverage, which includes property, watercraft, errors and emissions, general liability, auto, and workers' comp. We're also able, through this program, to secure additional coverages specific to JAXPORT, including business interruption, vessel impact, channel blockage, and coverage on vacant property. We have participated in this program since 1978, though the participation is always cost-effective because we are allowed to include our risk with the larger risk pool of all the city assets. This year, our premium is $537,000. Chris Crouch, risk manager, works with the City of Jacksonville to arrange our coverage. He also tests pricing to make sure our participation remains cost-beneficial to us. This year, the comparison against 4 other Florida ports confirm our rate of approximately 15 cents per $100 coverage compares very favorable to those ports, which run from 33 cents to 85 cents per $100 of coverage. We ask the board to reaffirm JAXPORT's ongoing participation in this program and authorize the CEO to remit JAXPORT's share of the premium to the city from year to year, including those premiums over $500,000, so long as those premiums are included in the annual budget approved by the board each year.
Great. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Conversation, questions? Great. Call the question to vote on BD 2019-06-05. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If you don't mind,
Please.
point of personal preference. Chris Crouch always does a great job in negotiating for JAXPORT and saving us money. And so I just wanted to say he should be recognized for
Well
that.
done. Stand up back there. There he is. Good job. Well
Always.
done.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Well done.
Thank you, Dr. Newman.
Ms. McCaig, number 3.
Yes, so the third submission I have is 0606, and this has to do with harbor deepening, Contract B, Phase 2. In August of this year, the Army Corps of Engineers will call on us to send over our local sponsor share of support for the harbor deepening project, Contract B, Phase 2. The submission you have in front of you represents the participation transportation grant agreement from the Florida Department of Transportation. The Florida Department of Transportation has supported our efforts for harbor deepening, as you know, since the initial startup of this project. This year, this particular grant participation agreement calls for the state of Florida to provide us with $25,906,001 towards the harbor deepening project this August. With every year that they send money, they require our board to approve our participation with them. So we look forward to your review of this and your approval. Once you approve, then we will begin the work with the state of Florida so that the $25 million is provided to JAXPORT in early August, when we'll be required to send a full amount over to the Army Corps.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Ms. McCaig, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
On to CEO update with Eric and the introduction of a special guest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to discuss maintenance dredging just for a brief period. As you all know, we are currently in a 3-year contract with our current maintenance dredger, Manson. They have 3 one-year renewal options, which we decided not to execute. As you all know, our maintenance dredging numbers have gone up significantly over the last 3 years. In an effort to try and mitigate the increased cost, we decided to look at possibly putting this out for bid. As long as I remember, over the 14 years of this contract, we've only had one maintenance dredge company to bid on this contract. So we looked at doing things a little different. We invoked the assistance of board member Fleming to help us with the exercise. As background, we conducted an industry day on April 3rd. 7 dredge companies attended the industry day. We advertised an invitation to negotiate on May 29th. There was a non-mandatory pre-proposal was held on June 5th. 4 companies actually out of the 7 attended the non-mandatory pre-proposal. And we received questions on June 12th from potential proposers. The current status as we sit today, the solicitation closes on June 26th. However, at least one potential proposal has asked for an extension. And typically what that means is that happens in the world of construction. There are a lot of questions that come from the different entities, and what they want to make sure is that they've answered in their proposal all of the things that they need to actually put in a decent bid for a job. Based on the questions, we hope to have at least 3 proposals to actually bid on this process. You might ask, what's next? The evaluation process is scheduled to be completed by July 9th, and negotiations will follow with those companies that fall within the competitive range. The best and final offers are due by July 22nd, and if all things hold true, we should be bringing a recommendation to the board at our August board meeting, definitely no later than our September board meeting. Mr. Chairman, with your consent, I would like to ask if you would appoint Mr. Fleming as part of our evaluation committee as a subject matter expert.
Yeah, by all means, we'd be well served, Ed. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Eric,
Yes, sir.
will you accept the proposal to delay it or not?
It depends on the questions. If there are questions, and we think James and his staff, direction of Fred, they're working to answer those questions as we sit today. If we can get those questions answered in a reasonable amount of time, then we won't. However, we will not speed it up to the point to where it may adversely affect someone from bidding. So we'll play that one by ear, because we want as many bidders to participate as possible for competition. The mayor, Mayor Curry, invoked a process that back when I was with the city of Jacksonville that called for all independent agencies as well as his departments to come and present their budget before what they call the Mayor's Budget Review Committee. On June 26th, myself, Beth, and Mike will be going over, and we will be presenting our budget before the Mayor's Budget Review Committee. What I see as a plus is not only is the CAO and the Chief of Staff a part of that process, as well as the CFO for the city, but also the council auditors, they participate in that process too. So the city will get a first look and a first blush at our budget and what it'll look like as we bring it forward towards the city council sometime in August. We haven't received a date for when we'll be presenting our budget from city council, but typically they send the schedule out a couple of weeks ahead of time. I have been fortunate and enough to be asked to address the membership, the ILA membership at their 55th quadrennial convention on July 23rd. I see it as an honor. I think this is the first time any member of JAXPORT has been asked to address the Longshoremen's Convention. And what it says to me is that we're definitely on the radar of a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to that. Before I ask Mr. Otero to come to the mic, I would like to introduce two of our latest employees. Our new Director of Security, Mr. Ron Linvey. Ron come to us from Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, 25 years. He was Director of Homeland Security and Investigation. So Ron, welcome. And Mr. Dan Deptula. Dan also served 25 years in the United States Coast Guard as an XO. Dan is our physical security specialist here at JAXPORT, so he oversees all the physical security plans as well as emergency preparedness. And we're honored to have both of those men join our team. So thank you. From time to time, we like to have customers come and talk about the relationship, the partnership, and the business here at JAXPORT. We think it is advantageous for the board to be able to hear from them and not always hear from us. With that being said, today our customer spotlight is Crowley. Mr. Tony Otero he has 20 years with Crowley. The last 8 of those 20 years, he served as Vice President and General Manager for Caribbean Services. As of January 1st of this year, Tony was appointed VP of Finance and Planning. So we get to hear the outlook of what he thinks about Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. At this time, I would like to welcome Mr. Otero to the podium.
Morning.
Morning.
Mr. Green and board members and everybody in attendance. I'm thankful to be here and for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about Crowley and the things that we're doing and the changes that we're making. When Kristen asked me to do this, I thought when she said come present to the board, I was thinking, okay, 8, 10 people. I come there, we have a discussion. So this is a little bit different, but that's all right. So I got the remote here. Just want to go here. So at Crowley, we're always kind of joking that the C that we have on our shirts and our emblem is not really for Crowley, it's for change. We're constantly changing. In the 127-year history of the company, it's constantly morphing, changing, adapting, and 2019 was no different. Our organization has been restructured to align best with the synergies and the businesses that we serve, the customers we serve. And we've shrunk our business units down from 6 to 4 primary business units. I'm going to get into the logistics one in a second. That's primarily my area where I work, and the team here at Jacksonville works. But the other areas are the shipping industry. This is where a lot of our assets are maintained and our support for the shipping industry. We do ship management. Our tankers are there, our ATBs, our fuel that move the petroleum up and down the West Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. Our solutions group is more of a newer group. It's more focused on our government services and the support they give to the governments, not just the U.S. government, but governments abroad. Many of you may have seen a couple years ago where we won the DFTS contract for the LTL transportation management in the United States, a $2.3 billion contract. So Crowley continues to grow in this, and our partnership with the U.S. government is a strong and growing partnership. And then our fuels business, we move petroleum mainly into Alaska, air fuels as well. But also this is where we manage our LNG business, and as you know here in Jacksonville and JAXPORT, LNG is an important part of what we're doing here, and not just fueling our vessels, our new commitment class vessels, the Coquina and the Taino, but also what we look to do in support of the energy needs of the Caribbean. So our logistics business, which is really where the consolidation happened this past year, we had 3 business units. One, our international flag shipping business, our Jones Act shipping industry that's traditionally been the business that comes out of here, out of Jacksonville, and then our traditional, what we called logistics, which was the warehousing, customs clearance, air freight, those type of service, inland transportation. So this year we consolidated the 3 down to 1. My boss, Steve Collar, is now over this business unit, and this business unit represents about half of the corporation. Corporation's about $2 billion revenue. Logistics is about $1 billion of that. Our logistics business, we're always been focused on speed to market. Our primary, I would say our largest markets are the northern zone, what we call the northern zone of Central America, which would be Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, mainly in support of the textile industry, and that largely, we move that largely out of South Florida. And then Puerto Rico is our, also the other large area that we serve, and that comes mainly out of here, out of Jackson, with the, as I said, the Taino and the Coquille. Speed to market, frequency of service, our blend of asset and non-asset based services, our value proposition to our customers. We control our destiny. We serve our customer base, providing an end-to-end solution. One call solves it all for you. So we're really looking to focus on logistics. That's what we are. We are a logistics company. We provide all these services to our customers, and we have long-standing relationships with many of our customers that we've been serving out of this market for decades. Our Jacksonville Partnership, though, is really what's changing. It's growing. Over the last few years, Jacksonville was predominantly a Puerto Rico-based service. But over the last few years, we've added basically our whole portfolio of services. We go to Central America, not only the northern zone, but also to Costa Rica and Panama. We go to the Dominican Republic out of here. We serve Dominican Republic out of here. We serve the U.S. Virgin Islands out of here, and we serve Cuba out of here. So our participation here continues to grow. This is kind of a developing business for us. We've talked with Kristen about how can we partner and develop Jacksonville more. There's a lot of opportunities. We're very strong out of South Florida. South Florida is a big player in the Caribbean market, but we feel that Jacksonville, because of its location, could be equally as strong, and we need to continue investing in the logistics capabilities of Jacksonville in order to serve the Caribbean basin. We continue to serve out of Talleyrand our Ro-Ro operation. So JAXPORT, we do serve the Taino and the Coquille, our Lolo operation, but we still maintain one of our 583 triple-deck barges to serve the Ro-Ro business. We have a triple-deck ramp out there at Talleyrand, and that is for the Puerto Rico, we call NIT, or the out-of-gauge cargo, rolling stock type cargo that is a growing business and maintains a strong business into Puerto Rico and the surrounding markets that we connect over Puerto Rico. We we're transshipping more and more over Puerto Rico as these new vessels have come online. We feel with the new recently approved funding that the Trump and Congress has approved, this is going to be a growing segment for us. Puerto Rico should start to see a lot more reconstruction after the disaster, and our vessels are in prime position to serve that market in that reconstruction effort. Our LNG capabilities, again, this is our vessels are LNG powered vessels. They are exceeding expectations, actually. And we continue to leverage that investment in fueling those vessels to try to see how can we develop more LNG capabilities in the Caribbean basin. As many of you know, the Caribbean basin is very expensive. Energy costs are very expensive, and we're looking to help solve those problems with microgrids in Puerto Rico, delivering LNG services to other islands. This is an area and opportunity where I think Jacksonville really has a lead on many other ports because of ourselves and one of our competitors already having the LNG having to come here to fuel their vessels. So this is already a large foundation to build off of. And I think that's, I'm hoping there's some questions. I don't like to always be talking, so, but again, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and to give you some information about Crowley, our partnership with JAXPORT. We are eager to find new opportunities to find how can we develop Jacksonville more in terms of making it a logistics hub to serve the markets we serve. So thank you.
Are there any questions for Tony? Tony, I'm going to ask you one just because you were, begging for a question.
I appreciate that.
So, I got to step up. Hey, so I'm curious, the Jones Act. I know Congressman Rutherford is a big proponent and speaking towards that legislation, which has been in place for a long period of time. Do you feel as if that's secure? And I know your company benefits as well as other domestic providers from that legislation.
Yes.
Where is that?
So yes, we do feel it's secure. We feel it's actually more secure than it has been in recent years. The administration is a supporter of the Jones Act as well. Congress seems to have backed off of it a bit. The Jones Act, we spent a lot of time and effort, as you can imagine, in efforts to defend the Jones Act. But I think people are realizing more and more as we were able to communicate why it's so important. It's not just the services to Puerto Rico or within the U.S. rivers and so on and so forth. It's to maintain the U.S. capability. And if we don't defend the Jones Act, the maritime industry in the United States is in severe danger because you just can't compete with labor offshore to build ships, to keep the crews on these ships. And that message, I think, is really hitting home, and we feel confident over the last couple of years that it's actually strengthened as opposed to the attacks that have been of late.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else? Great. Oh, yeah, now you got a little on.
Your company recently moved over to our property. What caused you to make that move? What about our property attracted you and made y'all change your business plan?
So I know enough to be dangerous about that, but basically the partnership we had it was a good fit for us. The experience has been actually very good. I'm told that it's actually the production and the work has been excellent. The location, the proximity to our already standing location was also a factor and has been beneficial to us. But it's the ongoing relationship and the work that we've been able to do. It's been a very positive experience for Crowley.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. What about John? Real quickly, what have you found to be the overall relationship with JAXPORT in terms of working with staff, responsiveness to your needs as a tenant? What would you say that relationship has been?
I would say it's been very good. My colleague, Pat Collins, probably deals more. He's our vice president in charge of our terminals and port operations. I'm sure he would have a lot more to say than I, but I'd say it's been very positive. We've had several meetings with the commercial teams in terms of how can we develop more and promote more Jacksonville together. And I know from an operational perspective, again, we've been very pleased with the performance. So I'd say it's been positive.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
There. No. Next up are the reports. James will start us out with an engineering and construction update. James.
Good morning. One of the positive things here is my reports keep getting shorter and shorter, which is a good thing because the projects that we do have left are some fairly large projects that we continue to ongoing. One of the things that we are doing here at Tyler Lane for Crowley and other commissions is we had several projects that's been underway. We've replaced the sheet pile walls along the terminal over the last several years. We've completed the last section along verse 7 and 8. I finished up in early January with those. And what we continue to do, though, is the under-deck repairs. That's another follow-up contract. And that is going up underneath, chipping out any concrete that's bald, exposing the rebar, forming it up, and replacing those so that our decks remain very strong without any restrictions. And what you see here, we issued the original contract back in November of 17, about a $2.5 million contract. The work runs along verse 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We continue to make progress where we had identified the worst areas. We had graded those and categorized those, and we hit the worst areas first and come back and continue to do the work. You can see underneath, see where some of the rebar was exposed previously. We go through, they use a jackhammer, chip out the concrete from around it to expose the rebar fully. Put in additional rebar if necessary. Spray it with some coatings. You can see it's not just the underdeck. Sometimes the main face of the wharf and the beams require some improvements as well. On the bottom, you can see where they're chipping away concrete on one of the face beams. You see some of it exposed, getting ready for concrete. And there are some exposed areas. You can see the guy in the water. And it looks like he's in about a foot or so of water. Try about 40 foot, actually. There's a lot of scaffolding there that you don't see in the structure. So he's really in deep water because our berth steps here are close to 40 feet. And you can see the final product there. He's admiring his work that he finished. So this project continues on. We'll continue to do some more of this work into next year as well as part of really looking at long-term preserving our facilities to make sure we don't have any major capital reconstruction projects like we're doing over Blunt Island, where it's a complete reconstruction. Speaking of Blunt Island, we reconstructed the first 35 and half of 34, finished up about 2 years ago, and we've now moved on into the other half of 34 and the remaining 33. And that's one large project. We brought it to the board past year, and we started the contract. We executed, mobilized in November, actually started work, and we continue to make good progress on that section. These are some photos that were taken just a couple days ago. This happened to be early in the morning. You can see how nice and calm the water looks. And because it was so early, there was no construction activity going on just yet that day. However, it continues on a daily basis there. But what you can see is we have, our contractor has a number of barges there where he's operating cranes off of those barges. And it was predominantly with the barges was used for removing the deck that was there over the water part. And you can see in those photos that there is no longer any deck there. The contractor has finished removing all the deck as well as a portion of the existing piles that were extending out into the water. So he's making progress in that. He's also, as part of that, as you can see, there's multiple different rows of piles that will support it. There's the waterside piles that the ships come up to the edge of the berth on. There's an interior line of piles that sit behind the sheet pile walls. There's a beam cap on top of the new sheet pile walls. There's another set further back, it's 100 foot from the water side, because that's where the cranes run, the 100-foot crane rail beams. And where the 100-foot crane rail beams back to the land side, we have battered piles to make sure it doesn't move. So the top picture shows the battered piles that were getting driven. Then they cut them off to grade. They form up a beam on top of them, as you can see in the third part. And this is where they pour the concrete to create a beam that everything sits on. The bottom picture is also on top of the sheet pile walls. They've driven about 90% of the sheet pile walls for this first half of this phase 2. And they've already driven the sheet pile walls. They've got a small section still working on. That's where there's a large stormwater outfall. And so they're finishing that. But they poured a portion of that beam as well, the cap, across the sheet pile walls. Once they pour that, they'll tie from the sheet pile walls to the old sheet pile walls that will remain in place. They'll tie into this, the 100-foot one with the battered piles to create one solid structure. And then they'll start forming the deck on top of that. Now, first will be precast deck that sits on top of that, and then concrete cast in place over that before they bring it on up to final surface grade. So a lot of work there. We're making progress. Had a few little hiccups along the way, but we still intend that we'll deliver the project on time within the budget. The cruise terminal project, this will probably be the last time that I give you updates on this particular project, because there's been a series of smaller projects along the way as well that's part of the cruise terminal. Obviously, the crown of the jewel was the gangway itself. The gangway's been in place now for a couple months and operational. We've had very good success with it. We're making a few minor tweaks and adjustments to it as a partnership with Carnival to make certain their guests have a great experience as they come onto the ship itself. But we're really just wrapping this one up. The only reason it's still here today and showing up in the reports is because we haven't made the final payments to the contractor of about $50,000 out of $1.5 billion, and that's because we're waiting to do a few little small punch list items. But it's done, it's in place, it's working very well. So far, everybody's been very pleased with it. We continue to see great results on Jeff's social media outlets on the results of the actual cruise terminal itself. So again, these photos are not me, all the other ones were, these were the same as last month. But again, great success for the brow and the gangway itself. And so with that, I'm glad to take any questions.
Anybody? Yep.
Yeah, one. James, can you speak to the change order in the decrease of 28,054? There's an explanation for the rehabilitation of Phase 2. There's an explanation in the remarks about change order was credited for revising DEP permit requirements authorized by DEP and Corps of Engineers. Can you speak a little more
I can.
to that? Because most times change orders, it goes up. This went down, so I just kind
He's
of
a little
like to...
defensive there. He's like, oh.
Contractor, we expect to get a little refund, and this is one that we did. We worked with the contractor. He had, the original plans, original permit called for turbidity barriers, floating turbidity barriers that went all the way to the bottom as he's doing work and removing things. Well, he asked could we talk to the DEP and see if he could remove that and put in, and it also required an air bubble curtain as well. And so we partnered with the DEP, submitted revised permits. They agreed that we did not need to do those, and as a result, it reduced the amount of effort that the contractor said. So we said, plain and simple, you're having to do less work, we want to see that refund back. So from that, we negotiated what we believe was a fair return for that effort. So that's where the response come back. It's a negative change order because we reduced the contract amount because he does not have to do the same level of effort that was originally bid for.
Good on you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Good. James, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Great job, my friend. CFO Beth McCaig has provided us with financial highlights for May 2019 as information only in your board book. So let's continue now with Mike McClung, who will bring us up to date on the financials. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Okay, we have 8 months into the year. Revenues before us here continue to report good numbers.
Absolutely.
Revenue growth year over year 5%, and similar trends versus budget. That's the total number. Breaking that down by containers. Containers, as we always say, make up about 50% of our business. Containers also showing strong numbers, 8% growth in TEU, year over year, 8% in revenue dollars. And we're noting that those actual results are on pace for about $1.4 million in TEU, which would be a record volume for this FY. We're going to build on that into next year's budget of closer to $1.5 million target TEU. But good numbers trending through 8 months. We break out the Asian trade, which makes up about 1/3 of our total TEU. Those numbers are up 10% year over year. Looking at the auto numbers, again, strong numbers. In terms of units, 8% over prior year, 4% in terms of dollars, and budget tracking 2% and 2% respectively. Those auto unit numbers, should they trend similarly for the rest of the year, we're going to see north of 700,000 auto units, which will be a record in auto volumes for this FY. Looking at the entire income statement, looking at revenues, again, we spoke through two main line items, containers and autos. Strong numbers out of cruise and also break bulk. trending positively to budget prior year, and that is some of the wood pulp business already coming online above expectations. Looking at expenses, you look at, if you're right, you see every category with the exception of maintenance dredging is under budget. We have a cost containment program in place trying to offset some of the heavy dredging lift that we're experiencing this FY. The last couple of months, you see no dredging expense to speak of in the month of August. And so those numbers look of less concern for the 8 months, but we see a scheduled dredge event for Talleyrand in June and probably again in September. So we're going to see those numbers trend upward into the rest of the FY. Hopefully it'll be less than the 7.2 million that we proposed earlier this year. Looking at non-operating items, we're doing well on our investment income. We're a little bit under on our shared revenue from the city. We're looking into that as those trends continue to decline relative to the communication service tax component. All in, income before depreciation, we're trending 3.3 million above our target. Those numbers are going to be impacted by the dredging that we might incur the rest of the year, but that excess revenue, net revenue will be added to our cash balances or paid down in the line of credit. And lastly, the balance sheet, just a quick look. Cash trending still around 16 million. You see that trending upward to 17, maybe 18 in the months ahead. As we just showed the impact of the positive financials. And then lastly, liability. We continue to pay down our debt, going from 230 million down to 223 million at the end of May. And the line of credit still shows balances as they were at the beginning of the year with no surprise in terms of any unexpected expenditures, capital outlay, etc. Any questions?
Any for Michael? No.
One
Please,
quick
Jim.
question. Mike, real quick, on that last slide, I was looking the month on the balance sheet. There was a big decrease in the restricted cash. Was that just a timing and paying down the accrued interest on the liability side?
That's exactly right. We have
Okay.
scheduled payments
Okay.
in May and November. Mr. Shelton, those payments were made. That's scheduled in May.
Okay.
Those are strictly interest payments, and the city decline in those balances.
All right, thank you.
Go back there, about $4 million.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. Kristen, will you please come up and present us with the commercial highlights? Good morning.
Hello again. All right. Okay, so on the commercial highlights, what I want to just touch on first is just, well, overall, we continue to see very positive momentum. It's through a lot of hard work of the team out there being busy and engaged with the customers. We're seeing more and more that Jacksonville, kind of really to Tony's point that he mentioned and what Crowley's doing with the diversification and how Jacksonville is being recognized more as a logistics hub. It's not just about the cargo discharging or originating here, right? It's about what's the end-to-end supply chain solution look like, and how does the city of Jacksonville in Northeast Florida fit into that? And that's a lot of the undertone of what you're seeing of the successes that we're having with all segments. So specifically to the container highlights, the container revenue is up 8% over the prior year and slightly over budget. Trans-Pacific volumes are up 11%, driven largely by the strong import volumes. MSC, ONE, and HAPAC continue to remain as our strongest growth customers on those trades. We're also enjoying a lot of growth from MSC. They have a feeder service that it's called the Freeport Bahamas feeder service, and what that acts as a main artery vein for volumes from Europe, Middle East, Africa, South America, and Asia. So we're enjoying growth from all of those kind of subsidiary markets as well to our container volumes. The Puerto Rico carrier volumes are flattening out just a little bit right now, and we have anticipated that. But again, as Tony had shared with us, the anticipation of the funding release to take place, perhaps maybe the end of this year into next year, will allow for the accelerated construction and additional growth in Puerto Rico. So we forecasted for that as well going forward in the new budget. For autos, the auto business is doing very well. Through May, auto revenue was 4% ahead of last year and 2% ahead of budget. Volume is 8% ahead of last year and 2% of budget. As Mike also shared, we're on pace to hit 700,000 units this year. The indications that we've gotten from the OEMs and our carriers over the next 3 to 4 months is that we will see a pretty significant surge, particularly as it correlates mostly to the end of the model year closeout. So we're excited about that. Additionally, the volumes for many of our automakers, they're up pretty much consistently across the board as double digits. And another accelerator to the vehicle growth that you're seeing is actually the used vehicles that are moving to West Africa from here. That's a growing and emerging market. Wanted to point out successful carrier meetings in Europe. Why is that important? Again, part of our story and how we're building our success going forward is yes, the local and the national relationships are critical that we have with the carriers and the BCOs. These individuals and these companies, they're influencers here in North America, but quite often the actual decision making is made at the global headquarters. So our team has been very diligent in terms of making sure that we have those relationships in place. Also, the timing of it is very important, because the sequence typically of what the ocean carriers follow is that their deployment schedules for the next calendar year usually start in June to July as they go through their budget preparation, and that's also when they look at their network design for the next year. So we're making a very valid attempt and successes in terms of those meetings in Europe, and we will also be doing the same in Asia through quarter 3 and 4. As part of how we're courting those additional services for JAXPORT. The last month, we've secured several new pieces of business. We're seeing very strong volume growth in break bulk, which is up 26% over budget. Some of this new business includes a commitment from a Canadian company to import lumber from Europe to JAXPORT. That business will generate $100,000 in new revenue for us. As well as we're seeing continued strong growth from imported wood pulp volumes from South America. We have talked about this a lot. Again, it's recognizing what Jacksonville is from a geographical standpoint and how we can service so many markets, and it's absolutely being recognized within the break bulk and wood pulp segment. We're also looking to grow our poultry exports. Why is that mentionable? Because particularly for the Caribbean and what Crowley has done with some of its accelerated services and network design, the southern Alabama, Georgia, that's where a lot of the processors are, and it's something we could capitalize on that our friends up north have traditionally been a little bit more successful with. I'll also mention the U.S. Army plans to ship a significant amount of military equipment from Blount Island this summer using the 832nd Transportation Battalion, which has great familiarity with our facilities. Also, foreign trade zone news, we're pleased to report that we have recently added Flagler County to our FTZ. This was Flagler County's request. It's the 9th county in the Northeast Florida that is part of our FTZ, which is a welcome addition because within the JAX USA Partnership umbrella, it's part of our FTZ. Finally, on May 16th, we welcomed the cruise ship Carnival Ecstasy to JAXPORT. It replaces the Elation. It is about the same size as the Elation, and like the Elation, the ship offers 5-night cruises to the Bahamas from JAXPORT. Fred Wong presented the captain of the ship with a maiden voyage plaque immediately prior to the inaugural sailing. One other piece we felt was pretty important to just share with you for a lot of reasons, not just because we're excited about it, but it's transformative and how you will really see the DNA of what the JAXPORT commercial team, the organization, what we call the JAXPORT way. Last month, we embarked on training with Butler Street, serviced and run by Mike Jackito. And this is a picture here of our entire commercial team and the executive team participating in this 2-day training with Butler Street. What does that mean for us as an organization? What that means is we are really redefining what the JAXPORT way looks like. It's more of a mindset of two things. First and foremost, it's making sure that we're diligent. There's a process on how we're prospecting and how we're courting customers, how we're talking to our customers, what that customer experience looks like. And then, of course, what is the value of what JAXPORT is? How are we communicating what the value of JAXPORT is when we're talking to carriers, when we're talking to BCOs? So what you see here is just really kind of the logic in terms of what this JAXPORT way mentality looks like. There's a process behind the lead generation, behind the pre-call planning. We're all leaning in as a team, learning from one another, sharing our successes, working with the coaching of Butler Street and how we better ourselves. This also translates into the sales call and making sure that we're clearly looking at the customer's operating reality. We're not just talking about ourselves. We need to understand more. We need to ask better questions so that we can better service our customers and grow. And then, of course, progress reports in terms of more regular communication within our organization of celebrating our successes. Where did we potentially have some challenges and how do we overcome that? And then lastly, this all wraps up to what the customer experience looks like. We've made some modifications within our department. So Lisa Diaz, who I think you all recognize very well with the FTZ, she will still be very involved with that, but she's actually going to be leading the build out and the development of what that customer experience looks like for JAXPORT. And that includes not just our current customers, but also our new customers, how we're onboarding them, what that consistency looks and feels like. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Please.
I appreciate your presentation. I think it's great that with some of the initiatives you're taking with your training. You know, the presentation to me was a bit of a history lesson, and I'm just wondering, how do you feel about your pipeline of new business? You know, you went into a lot about how we're growing the business that we have already, which is great. How do you feel about your future pipeline at this point?
Quite exceptional, and the reason I say that it's coming from twofold. So there's two things that we are doing. We all know about the volume that's obviously moving north that's coming into Florida that should be serviced through Jacksonville, through Florida ports. So there's two factions happening. One, when we're courting carriers, if you will, and we're talking about why additional services need to come here, part of what is the enticement of that is what is their market share going to look like by bringing that service here. So we have two things that we're building. We're building a pipeline of the BCOs who are out there, who are actually controlling the cargo, whether it be imports and exports. That's through talking with them, right? That's through our participation at the conferences. The other piece of this is the research of saying, okay, these are the carrier services out there. This is what the customer base is asking for. This is the market share for these various destinations and trade lanes, and how do those two marry up? So we're kind of working it in tandem. There's a pipeline for the actual shippers and importers, and then there's the pipeline that exists for the carriers themselves. So in totality, if you're asking for actual number figures, let's say, of how much we actually have in our pipeline right now.
Yeah, do you have 3 or 4 or 5 prospects that you feel good about at this point?
For carriers, yes.
Carriers and or
customers.
distribution
Yes, sir.
centers?
Yes, sir,
You do?
absolutely.
And I know we don't want to name names at this point, but...
We have a very robust pipeline in terms of dollar amount and actual volume amount that translates both as the shippers and importers and the carriers themselves. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Great, please.
Yeah, great presentation. Got a question on your first page about the watching China on the tariffs. And I recognize 8%, Beth shared this with me in our presentation, 8% of our container operation comes from China, specifically, the rest is Malaysia. But, not overreacting to the tariff situation, do we have a plan to increase the Malaysian space for mitigation of what tariffs could take place, or is 8% about what the baseline is going to be, or that number going to shrink to protect us for possible tariffs in the future, or How does that whole space look to you?
What that space looks like is, that goes back to these conversations that the key for us is first of all, we have the model of diversification just as an organization.
Right.
But that is also critical in terms of the network design that we have and the service schedules that we have. So today, between the two primary alliances that we have a healthy service of Northern Asia and Southeast Asia, but the conversations that we're having with the carriers about the additional trans-Pacific development and additional schedules and, services that we're attracting include Southeast Asia. So there's very specific conversations with these carriers about, okay, we know today, Alliance 2M, you're servicing North Asia with us. This is what the market share looks like for opportunity here in the Northeast Florida market. This is why you need XYZ service here. So we are in those conversations, and it's really about giving them the confidence that there's enough of a market share, because they're not going to just switch ports just to move cargo around. They
Right.
want to gain the cargo share. So absolutely, it's in the conversations that we're having.
Okay, I'm just concerned about that whole tariff piece in terms of whether that number, that 8%, will change at all, because of course we're affected by that in terms of our exposure.
I think 8% is actually, I'm going to say it's a safe number. It's fairly low relative to what a lot of the other ports are experiencing. But as long as we have those Southeast Asia services in place, that's critical, because a lot of that sourcing is shifting, to your point exactly, to Malaysia, to Indonesia, to Thailand.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Kristen, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, at this point in other business, I'll ask for a motion to approve the travel for any members of the board called upon to do business or attend meetings on behalf of the port during the months of July and August of 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved, sir.
Second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. And if there is no other business, is there any other business? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.